So you want to go racing, and you want to go racing in your own car. I'm going to go through a few of the things that you might need to get yourself there. And unusually for this sort of thing, I'm going to include costs. So a few disclaimers before we get started. This is what it cost me to get myself from pretty much nothing to the BRSCC MX-5 Championship. Now there are things that I've bought that you might already own. There are some deals you might be able to get that I wasn't able to get. You might just plain do a better deal than I was able to do.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
The easiest method, of course, is to arrive and drive. Now there are plenty of outfits out there that'll do that for you. And in this circumstance, all you need to do is get yourself the licenses and some of the personal gear that I'll talk about a bit later. This video is more about how you get your own car to the race circuit. So you're going to need to get this car from place to place. You're going to need to get it to the race circuit, you're going to need to get it to the garage, and you're going to need to get it to professionals who are going to help you out with a few things. Now, there are a few ways of doing that. You could pay someone to take it from place to place. I think that will end up quite very quickly being very expensive. So you do it yourself. Okay, so you need to tow the car around on some sort of trailer. Okay, there are two elements to that, of course. You've got the tow car. For me, I bought a 2003 Jeep Cherokee. It was about £3,000. It was something that I didn't own already, so my existing cars didn't have the towing capacity to take a car on a trailer. Now, it might be something you already own. Now, I use the Jeep for other things, so I'm not going to include that in the total costs. The trailer, but wait, are you allowed to use a trailer? Now, if you pass your test after the 1st of January 1997, and you're in the UK, then you'll need to take the B+E test. I did a couple of days and 2 tests. I failed the first one before I even got in the car. But let's not talk about that. That was £595 and then £235 for my stupid mistake. So total cost of £830 so far, and that gets you the B+E bit on your license. Okay, back to the trailer. So is that new or used? I mean, trailers in the UK especially seem to hold their value quite well. So Brian James is the established trailer, and I4 Williams, who makes a lot of the farming stuff around in the UK, they're looking to get into the market, and so I was able to get a fairly good deal on a brand new trailer. Their entry level offering has served me pretty well over the last year. It cost me £2,592. With the towing straps and all the others, and the lock and all the other stuff that comes with it, it's probably closer to £2,700. Insurance for that cost me another £150. Okay, so you've got a tow car, you've got a trailer. It's probably time to get your race car. So you've got 3 choices really. You can get a road car and you can try and convert it into a race car. You can get a track car and convert that to a race car, and there's some subtle differences that you might not be aware of. Or you can get a race car that's race proven. I went out and I thought I was getting a race car. Now that was wrong in hindsight, and what I'd actually bought is a track car, which needed a lot more work than I think I'd initially anticipated, and probably what the seller was letting on eBay as well. So I got a bad deal with this, and potentially where you could probably save some money if you're doing it yourself. So I won an eBay auction on this car, and I paid £3,300. Now that was probably way too much for this car. So even though I had the trailer, the car was the other side of the country, and I didn't really fancy that sort of across the country road trip, so I paid £215 to ship the car to me. And it failed to start when it came off the trailer, which was always a good sign. That was about £100. Other bits and pieces, probably another £150 in parts to get it running. Testing, again, probably can save a bit of money here. I hired a local airfield. That cost £205, and then I bought insurance for the whole activity, and that cost £338. I think whilst that was pretty cool, I think I'll probably be sticking to track days in the future. It's just too expensive, and it doesn't get you the same experience as a track day. Okay, so you can get this car, which is an open top vehicle, to the track. With British weather, do you not want somewhere to put it when you get there? Now, in some track days you can hire garages and things like that, and I always try and do that where I can. But especially at race days, you're not going to have access to a garage. So I bought a 6 metre by 3 metre pop-up gazebo with walls, and that cost me £275. When you get there, you're probably going to need to protect your head when you're out on the circuit. At the track day, the only specialist equipment you really need is a helmet. For racing use, you need one with hands posts, and those are a bit more expensive than your bog standard helmet. So the one with hands posts cost me £320, and I got one without the hands post for my passengers at track days for 70 quid. So depending on how much work you're going to do yourself, you're going to need some tools. Now, I didn't need that many new tools. I probably spent a few hundred on additional things here and there, so let's put a round figure in about £250. You'll probably need a spare set of wheels and tyres. So these are controlled in the BRSCC series, so you can't just get any wheel and tyre that you want. I got a set of wheels for about £450. I got a shaved set of tyres and one set with full tread on them. And I forget how much exactly that was, but it's probably less than you might think. It was about £500 for the 8 tyres. Problems. So when you start testing, you'll probably come up against a few problems that the car's got. Whenever I buy a car, I always find out why the person was selling the car a few months into ownership. The engine on this car was not good to start with. There were some surging problems, and in fact it was detonation, and that ended up killing the engine. I bought another engine on eBay, so looking to go cheap with this, and I think buy cheap, buy twice. So the engine that I bought had no compression. Wasted a lot of time on it, a lot of heartache, arguing with the seller, arguing with eBay. I did get some money back on that, but I probably just threw about £100 down the drain with that whole experience. In the end, I went with a race-prepared engine from Ali Bray, and that set me back about £2,100. I needed a new seat. It needed to be in date for the race series. That cost me £200. I needed a limited slip diff. I got one from eBay. Turned out it didn't contain all the right bits and pieces. It wasn't a straight swap between the limited slip and the open diff. So after working this out, I bought another one, which did have the right bits and pieces attached to it. So the first one cost me £75 and the second one cost me £100. I needed a new ECU. That cost me £50. I needed to take all the old brakes out, put new brakes in. I needed to swap ABS for non-ABS. So that cost me £40 for the servo, £130 for the new pads, and £85 for some new discs. I had to buy a new exhaust system and get rid of the catalytic converter. And this is what I mean between the difference between a track car and a race car. I think a track car might have a few bits and pieces stripped out, but a race car really goes to the minimum in terms of weight. And yeah, getting rid of the things like catalytic converters. So I bought a new cheap stainless steel exhaust system. That's £170. That needed some custom hangers. That's another 20 quid. Unfortunately, even though it's marketed as having the right shocks for the series, it pays to check these sort of things. And so the vehicle that I had, this one in fact, didn't have the right shocks attached to it when it came. So it needed a new set of gas shocks, which are controlled in the BRSCC series. And that was about £500. I don't want to look it up again. All of these parts, and there's probably a whole bunch more that I'm kind of forgetting right now, but I probably spent another £300 on parts, and that's probably being a bit on the conservative side. So after working out these problems, back to testing. I went on a few track days. The evening ones can be cheaper, but at about £200 a pop, I think, most of the full day track days are. Then you've got to think about fuel, getting there and back. I went on about 5 or 6 of these. I think so. It's difficult to sort of calculate the exact figure I spent overall, but let's call it £1,500 on track days and testing. For me anyway, there were more problems with the car. The roll cage had to come out and then be put back in again. And that was partly due to the welding, standards of the welding on the cage when I bought the car. Again, it's something I didn't look at when I looked at the car, and that's something that I'll probably look at in hindsight. That welding was pretty shocking. So the whole cage had to come out and be put back in again. So if you know welding, this is where you can save yourself a bit of money. It also needed a new fire extinguisher system to be plumbed into the car. The capacity on the original one wasn't high enough. Now, with all that stuff done, that was another £1,415, so £1,415. Okay, so now you've got the car, you can get it to track days, it works, it's pretty much now a race car. Now you want to go to the next level and actually take it to some races. Okay, so you're going to need a license, and a national race license B. Before you even think about that, you've got to get the Go Racing pack from the MSA, that's another £100. And then you book a test. So the test I booked was at Mallory Park, and it cost me £300. I had to take the day off work for that. Again, I get paid holiday where I am. You know, if you work for yourself, then this might be a cost you have to factor in. It's quite local to me, so I'm not really factoring in the time cost or the cost of getting there in terms of fuel or mileage on the car. You'll need a helmet for racing, and that's sort of already mentioned, and that's already included in the costs. But you'll also need a bit more. You'll need fireproof clothing, you'll need a hands device, and the sky's the limit here, really. I mean, you can spend a huge amount of money on racing gear, but I kind of went as budget as I could whilst obviously remaining safe, and I spent about £1,000. Okay, so now you have the race car, you've tested it, you've got all the personal gear that you need, you have the race license. Now, so all you need to do now is enter a race series. So the series entry cost me about £450. 150 of that was to join as a member, and then a £300 for the series entry. I entered one race. I think I intended to enter more, but obviously with all the problems I had, and that race entry was about £435. Okay, so now you've entered the race and you're ready to go. Now, do you support yourself or do you get a team to support you? So do you know the rules and regs? Can you get yourself to scrutineering, get the car through scrutineering? Are you confident the car will pass scrutineering, or do you think it needs a bit more work? Crash damage, if you do crash in the first race, are you confident you can fix it in time for the next one? What if the gearbox fails? Are you able to go and fix that at the circuit? If you're not really confident in some of these things, then maybe it's a good idea to get yourself a team. And that's what I did for my first race. I think maybe in future years I might try and support myself at a few races, but at least initially I paid for that support. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stuff you might want that race team to do. So how about a geometry setup? Maybe a pre-race check, new brake fluid, things like that. So that pre-race check for me cost me about £180. So that, as I say, for that first race, I went for that supported option. Now, I'm not going to say exactly how much that costs. I think there's a bit of commercial sensitivity around this. But if you budget around £700, you'll probably be pleasantly surprised. You'll need a transponder, and that allows the circuit operators to know where you are on a track, and it's a requirement, it's the timing. GoPros or a similar camera that you can put on the car, you absolutely need one of those, and that's part of the regulations. Now, I had these already, so I'm not going to put them into the costs of racing. I hired the transponder on the day, and that's always an option, and that costs about £30 a race. You can look online, and there are some other transponder options. It's a bit of a monopoly, unfortunately, the transponder market. Now, I travelled up every single day, so I don't live that far from Donington Park. It's about an hour and a half's journey for me, a bit less. So I sort of decided against staying in a hotel and sort of went to home and back every day. Now all the other stuff, sort of food, fuel, time, and all the stuff I forgot. I don't know how much all that came to, but let's say another 10%, maybe a bit more, maybe 15%. So as you'll see, the figure that I've come up with is just a figure for me. Hopefully it gives you a bit of an idea as the sort of things that you might be getting into if you're trying to get yourself from pretty much nothing to racing the car. Now, as I said, I bought a track car and I tried to convert it. So the lesson I think I really learned was, if you actually add up how much I spent on this, I probably would have been better off buying a race-prepared car, so one that had already gone through scrutineering, that had maybe placed quite well. So if you're looking for a car that's maybe placed in the top 10 in the series that you're entering, then you know you're going to get a fairly decent car. Alternatively, you could go the other route, which is, in this series at least, taking an MOT failure, taking a Mazda MX-5 Mark 1 1.6 and converting it into the race car. Now, you might be able to pick up one of those MOT failures for that £200-300, and then you've got £5,000 or £6,000 to convert it into a good race car, and you'll probably end up doing that slightly cheaper, particularly if you have all your own labour. I think if you're paying someone else to do it, you might run up against costs there. So obviously a lot of the total cost here is an investment, and I could get some of that money back if I were to cash it all in. So next year, in terms of the running costs I'm expecting to have with the car, I mean, the cheapest you can possibly get, obviously, is £435 for the race entry for each race, and then of course there's the fees for the yearly ownership and stuff like that. Now, I'm hoping that a budget of around £1,500 a race would probably get me at least some of the way there for next year. So that's kind of my thinking on it. You will have a different idea, probably. It's probably a bit optimistic, to be honest. So if you set yourself a budget, double it, and add 10%, you're probably about there. So I hope this has been helpful. It is, of course, just one person's view and one kind of championship, the BRSCC MX-5 Championship. So if you do have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And I do hope that you'll be able to go racing and be able to do it better and cheaper than I did.